here joining us on this Mira in practice. We have several providers with us who are going to give their insights and strategies on how to get started using Mira in their practice. And so to introduce us really quickly, I'm Rose McKenzie. I'm the medical affairs specialist here at Mira, and my role is to support you, the clinician, the provider using Mira in your practice. And I've brought along with me three wonderful clinicians that I'm super excited for them to be here. So I'll do a quick little intro about each of them, and then we'll jump right in with a poll question. So we have here with us Dr. Cleopatra. She is a rock star, super baby, and she is the founder and CSO of Fertility and Pregnancy Institute. Her and I have been able to do several blogs together, and she really is doing amazing things with her trimester protocol. Next, we have Adele. Adele is the women's health practitioner and founder of Harmonize You, so her own company, where she supports women from menarche to menopause. So her and I are currently working on a research project together, so it's super fun to have you on this platform. And last but certainly not least, we have Christina, who's the founder and lead PA at her own company of Camel City Women's Wellness. So it's so great to have all of you here in your different types of roles. So I kind of want to quick turn it over to you guys to say a little bit about like what is your specialty, so people kind of know where you're coming from when we're using Mira in your practice. So we'll just go ahead and start with Dr. Cleopatra. What is your specialty and what do you do?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm so excited to be here and to share this resource with you and how we're using it at the Fertility and Pregnancy Institute. So, as Rose alluded to in my introduction, I'm known for making what we call super babies. It's not designer babies or anything like that, but it's really harnessing the power of our epigenetics, which is our gene expression in the trimester. Some of you use the word preconception, but we to refer to this period, but it's the period of time, 120 or so days leading up to conception. And we harness our gene expression to make it easier and healthier to get pregnant and stay pregnant and lay a very strong epigenetic foundation for the babies we're making. And that's why we call them super babies. So it really serves double duty in terms of helping people to have healthy reproduction and to get pregnant and stay pregnant in the first place, including at much older, and I'm putting that in quotes if you can't see me, ages than we traditionally see in the average population, but also making sure that our babies are the healthiest, happiest, brightest, most well-adjusted and neurocognitively strong that they can be. And I can talk about the reasons why we focus on that. But so I'm known best for the trimester protocol, which is what we use to make our super babies. And within the trimester protocol, we teach a very specific type of cycle science that allows people to identify their fertile window and their most fertile days with the most incredible precision possible, with least margin of error humanly possible outside of ultrasound. And we use the Mira as a tool for how to do that. And we teach them this both for pregnancy achievement and prevention. But of course, most people are coming to us for the sake of pregnancy achievement. And we teach them with a very specific set of instructions that accounts for challenges that are more common among women who are having difficulty conceiving, who have experienced pregnancy loss, or who are quote unquote older. So things like the tendency, and all of this is from our scientific data. So none of this is based on my personal opinion or even my almost 3 decades of clinical practice, because I started out in the research laboratory 28 years ago. So things like women tend to ovulate earlier in their cycle than expected as they get a little bit farther along in the reproductive span. They have a shorter luteal phase. They may experience a weaker LH surge, and especially relative to estradiol levels, and their LH surge might be shorter, so that if they're only testing in the morning, they could completely miss it and think it's not happening at all. They may have lower estradiol levels, and often do, as they're getting closer to a depleted ovarian reserve and closer to perimenopause and menopause. So our instructions for using the Mira account for all of these things. And we have it in the trimester protocol in a very methodical way. And I've provided some screenshots in case we have a chance to look at those. But that's essentially how we use it. So anyone who wants to do the trimester protocol is automatically going to be using the Mira as a tool to collect data on their own body. It's almost, I always say it's an at-home lab, but it's almost a way of being able to look inside the body and really understand what's going on. So if you want to get pregnant, the first place to start is to make sure that you're timing intercourse properly.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of your insight. I think you hit on a lot of things that many of us all agree with. Just to switch over to Adele or Christina, whichever one of you wants to jump in. I put a poll question in the chat for everybody quickly of why would you choose Mira? What are you using it for? But we'll kind of switch over to you guys of what's your expertise and how you use Mira in your practice.
Do you want to go, Christina?
Sure. I'm Christina Saldana. I'm a PA in North Carolina on the East Coast, and I do some fertility work in my work with women, but predominantly I'm seeing women in the perimenopausal and menopausal transition. I do a lot of hormone health around PCOS, PMDD, other amenorrheic conditions that don't really have a name or a rationale or a reason for. So I'm helping women collect objective data for a lot of times when they're told there is no way that we can monitor these things. There's no way that we know. Here's some birth control pills and send them on their merry way. So Mira has been extremely impactful for my patient population because they kind of fall outside of the fertility world, right? Like unless they're actively trying to get pregnant, sometimes they're not given a lot of time and space in a medical facility to really deep dive into what's going on. So we do that. And Mira is like kind of like my another staff member in my office. That's able to help women collect information in the ease of their own home. So again, I focus a lot from periods all the way up well past the menopausal transition. And there's really a place in a lot of different places in women's health and hormone monitoring that we can use Mira for, and that I do use Mira for. So yeah, that's how I use it in my practice.
Wonderful. And then we come to Adele. Tell us about your expertise and how you use Mira in your practice.
Hey, so I'm a women's health practitioner, and I, at the opposite end of the spectrum to Dr. Cleopatra, I'm working predominantly with perimenopause, but my niche within the women's health world is around ADHD, and I'm fascinated with how emotions and mood are affected by hormones. And I actually feel this is a massive piece of the puzzle that is missing in how women's mental health is managed. But I won't go on that feminist soapbox tonight. But the way that I tend to work with women is I tend to see women from about 35 onwards. I'm very passionate about perimenopause and then how ADHD is affected by hormones, because this is a big piece of the puzzle that is missing for management for so many of these neurodiverse women. So Rose and I are currently working on a study with a small cohort of ADHD women to using the Mira data to then analyze alongside their symptoms, which is and their traits, which will be really exciting. So I run an online clinic. I work with women all over the world, and I have an in-person menopause clinic that I run with an incredible specialist GP here. So we have both the kind of bioidentical hormones available and all of the lifestyle measures. But the women that I see, which I'm sure is very similar to the other fantastic practitioners here, are ones who have felt incredibly gaslit with their experience, have had years usually of symptoms where they have been told there's nothing wrong with them, their bloods are normal, and basically it's in their head or go on the pill or an SSRI. And actually that is not what women need to hear. And something that, the Mira came into my life just at a point where I was like saying, why do we not have something like a continuous glucose monitor for hormones? And then suddenly this appeared. And I was like, if this does what I think it's going to do, it changes everything. And honestly, I think if every woman could have this in their life, it would change our inner dialogue and the way that we experience our hormones so much. And the biggest thing that I see is how validating it is for women when they see what is happening to their hormones rather than guessing it, and then are able to work with a practitioner to say, this is what's going on, and be really heard and seen in their experience with the scientific evidence to match what they have been experiencing. So, you know, I use it in a lot more detail, but broadly that is the way in which I work with it. So not the fertility end, but very much the hormonal fluctuations and imbalances.
Yes, I think you hit on how I like to explain it is anyone who has fluctuating hormones can benefit from Mira because there's so many different situations. I know many clinicians, of course, are using it for women trying to conceive, but there's also irregular cycles, hormone imbalances, perimenopause. So I put, again, another poll in the chat of which situation do you primarily recommend Mira for? So again, we put those choices in there for you to quickly answer. And then we're going to move on to, and I should say, before I forget to say, if you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. We do have staff on the back end that we are trying to answer the questions that we can either in the chat, or we'll try to answer them live. Any questions that we're unable to answer today because it's not pertinent to the current conversation or we run out of time, we will answer and send out to you afterwards. So please go ahead and throw your questions in the chat as we go. So what we'd like to talk about, in case someone is like considering using Mira in their practice and they're unsure, well, how do I even get started? Many people are unaware that Mira, you can just buy it. So you don't have to prescribe it, order it. Patients can go and purchase it for themselves. But there are multiple options you can partner with us. So these are the 4 options. We have a patient discount code. We have an affiliate partnership where the patient continues to get the high discount, but you get commission. We have drop shipping and then bulk purchasing. So we're going to go through each of these one at a time, and we'll talk about from the clinician side which one they've chosen and why. So we do want you to be aware we are running a current promotion for the holiday season. So from November 1 till December 31, all of these discounts have been increased. So you can see here our patient discount codes have gone up 10%, our affiliate, and so on. So again, big discounts if your patients are considering using Mira at this time. So let's talk about the patient discount code first. So first thing is this discount code that we give out to providers is, I like to say, a special discount code. It has no expiration, no minimum purchase price, no maximum number of times it can be used. And we do allow it to be combined with our One subscriptions. So it's generally 20% off all the time. But for the holidays, again, we have increased it up to 30% off. And we allow it to be combined with a One subscription. So let me just show you in an illustration what that looks like. So a patient signs up for One subscription, meaning a box shipped to them once a month. That is 10% off on the website. So you can see here, 10% off. Then they add in your discount code at checkout. That adds the next 20% off, making the One 30% off. That's a huge significant savings for your patients. And again, for the holiday season, we've even increased that now up to 40%. So as a clinician, what you might say to a patient is, if you need this to be cheaper for you, here is an option. You can do a One subscription. And we're trying to make this, again, as easy as possible for both you and the patient. So I assume, but I don't want to assume, that all 3 of you have discount codes. Is that correct? And do you find that it's useful or easy to give them out to your patients?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'll start. Because we have a members area where the Primester protocol step-by-step lives, we have the Mira information, the link and the code there at the beginning in an orientation. And then we have it again several more times, including where we're teaching the cycle science. So they are reminded of the tools that they want to be using in order to implement the cycle science. So it's really embedded in their process. And then more recently, we have sent them reminders via email. If you haven't gotten your Mira yet, you're coming up on this section of your Primester. So make sure that you order it so you have it ready to go. And one thing that we're planning to do is to highlight Mira in the holiday season during a series of different things that we're going to be highlighting for our email list. So that'll be the first time that we're doing that, but I'm excited to do that as well. So that will go to our full email list as opposed to the segment who are currently primestering, and they're seeing the information within the primester protocol.
Wonderful.
Do you want us just to share how we're using the actual code itself? Where we do that?
Yeah, actually for you, I think I have an example of yours on your website. So I'll be getting to your example here.
Okay.
Let me talk about affiliate next. So this is option 2. So we talked about discount codes first. So again, there's no essentially commitment on your part. We give you a discount code, you hand it out to your patients. The next options, you have to decide if you want them. So our affiliate partnership, this would be you do sign up. It's a one-time sign up through a third party called Impact. The patient continues to receive the high discount codes. So the patient gets the same % off, but now you're gaining commission based on these purchases. And these payouts are, again, through Impact, third party, one-time sign up. If you are considering this and you want to know what our rates are, or if you're ready to sign up today, we put the QR code here. You can go ahead and scan it. Again, this is through a third party called Impact. Once you signed up, you're all set. The commissions will be generated in the back end, and then you'll be paid out. So it's a pretty easy process to do once you are signed up. It's and maybe Adele or Dr. Cleopatra could explain kind of how it goes for you being an Impact affiliate member.
I mean, for me personally, it just works really smoothly. I haven't had any issues with it. The products kind of leave and the money comes into my bank account. It's been fairly easy to as a system to I haven't had any issues with it at all. So it's worked well.
Yes, I have nothing to add because I do nothing. My team set it up, and it doesn't require any additional maintenance. So it's perfect. I mean, that's what you want it to be like. It doesn't require any additional energy or attention from you. And I also think it's really important that it continues to provide the discount to your patients or clients so that you don't feel like you're diluting that in any way for them.
Sure.
So I appreciate that very much.
And Christina, sorry to put you on the spot, but I'm not sure if you're an affiliate partner or not.
Yes, I am. It's very easy. I don't think about it. I give my patients the Mira document with the QR code and tell them to scan it and link in to me. And here's my code. And it's very easy. I don't think about it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay. And so again, if you're considering being an affiliate member, just to summarize, you continue to give your patient the high discount code. That's automatic. That we keep that % the same for the patient, but now you generate the commission, and this would be the terms for it. If you go to sign up, if you have any questions about it, our team is happy to meet with you. There is a booking link that you can book with any of our team, and I'll show you that later. I'm just going to quick look at the chat because there is a couple of questions in here that we might be able to answer. So let's just see here. Someone wants to know about ordering this. So again, you're not actually ordering this for the patient. They can just go and purchase it themselves. This is a direct-to-consumer product. Let's see here. There's another question about, does Mira monitor cortisol? At this point, no, we do not test anything related to cortisol. We test estrogen, LH, progesterone, and FSH. So urine metabolites of estrogen and progesterone, and then LH and FSH. Okay, next we'll talk about drop shipping. So drop shipping is usually meant for a program, a course, where you have a group of patients that when they sign up for this program, you want them to have a Mira device. And so you include it into your package. So when patients purchase it, then they can go ahead and get shipped this analyzer. So in this process, again, there's no registration. We'll just give you a discount code, but you or your administrative staff do the work of ordering it for the patient. So patient signs up with you, you go on the website, you order on their behalf, put in their shipping information, it gets drop shipped directly to them. So some ways that I've seen this successfully used is maybe you have a group of PCOS clients. And so your course on PCOS, anyone who signs up for a PCOS course with you, you advertise that you'll get a Mira with that program, and then you have it shipped to them directly. So if you're interested in drop shipping, again, we put the QR code here. It's very easy to do. Again, high percentages off for the patient, but you do the work of ordering it for them. So just to summarize the drop shipping one more time, patients receive the device, but they get shipped it directly from us. We ship it for you, but you just go on to the website and order on their behalf. Okay. It looks like, again, we have some questions in the chat about some basic information about the Mira device. And so it sounds like some people have not maybe heard about the Mira device or started using it yet. So I'm just going to go over some very basics. The Mira device itself is an at-home analyzer that women collect a first morning urine sample. They dip the wand into the urine. They then put it into the machine, and it reads out values of estrogen, LH, progesterone, and optional FSH. This can be shipped internationally. Anywhere your patients are, we can ship pretty much. There's some remote areas in Africa that we can't ship to. We use immunofluorescent technology. So this is a specific quantitative measurements of those hormones in urine. And you have the ability as a provider to see the patient's data in the dashboard, which is our HIPAA compliant platform, where you can, again, view your patient's data. So for those of you who don't know some of those things about Mira, I'd be happy to meet with you in a call after this, and I'll go over that. Okay, last option is bulk purchasing. So this one's just like it sounds. Patients buy in, you buy in bulk, and then you sell it back to the patient. So that usually works best for practices that work in person. So if a patient comes into your office, they see you, you recommend Mira to them, then they can just buy it from you right then. So it's immediate testing. It's very seamless that way. And you would have inventory in your office. So if you're interested in bulk purchasing, we have the QR code here. So now let's do another QR code, another poll really quickly here. Let me just pull it up. We would like to know what would be one of the most important things for you to recommend Mira for a patient. So what's the most important benefit? So are you using it to empower your patients to understand their hormones? Do you want an affordable option to other alternatives that they could be using to track their hormones? Do you want a simple and user-friendly experience, or do you want to support them on achieving their personal health? So go ahead and please answer that question. We're going to turn this over to how to get started as a partner. So there's many ways that you can introduce Mira to a patient. So of course, it could be during an in-person or a telemedicine visit. You could yourself be running webinars or having podcasts where you're explaining Mira to a patient. So Dr. Cleopatra and I have done that, for example. It could be listed on your website. So if you have a patient who is looking at your services and is wondering, maybe they're already using Mira and they're trying to find a clinician that understands the Mira data. We get asked this a lot by our clients. They say, I'm using Mira, but I can't find a provider to work with. How can I find them? So that's something that you can actually advertise on your website, is something that you have expertise in. So then you can attract patients that way. Of course, you can be putting information out on social media. You could introduce Mira to a patient using our handout or put it in a flyer in your office setting. So I have some examples here of some of our very own. This is Adele's website. So you can see that she has done some of those strategies where she lists out what Mira is and has this wonderful video of the importance of tracking your cycles. So this is something that you could consider doing if you're trying to, again, show the importance of what hormone tracking is and why it's important. And then what do you do from there? And do you want to touch on anything there? Sorry, Adele.
No, not at all. I was just gonna say, it's just the value that comes from getting clients to track their symptoms on some form of tracker and then sit with the Mira data is really quite incredible. It's really been able to up level the work that I do and to empower the women I'm working with so much. It's really been quite incredible.
I think also you told me before that sometimes you actually attract patients through social media because of yeah, if you want to touch on that for a
Yeah,
second.
so I actually share Mira through social media, with my community, because I think it's genuinely such a valuable tool. I don't really share very many things, and through that, then what happens is when people purchase the Mira, they receive a guide from me in there and a link to have a session with me. So I actually get clients who just want to look at their Mira data and interpret that with me, even if they're not working with me on a package or through the clinic itself. They kind of come into the clinic through them wanting to say, right, what does this mean? How does this align to my symptoms? And then we say, look, this is what's going on. This is what we can do about it. So that's another route that works really well, just by authentically sharing. There's no strategy to it. I'm not good at strategy. It's just sharing it.
Sure. There's other, of course, options on websites. So these are just some other companies who have, for example, on the left-hand side here, this is a storefront. So they have clinicians who are, wanting to recommend Mira for their patients to buy. They put their discount code right on there. There's other companies that will list out like their best recommendation for supplements or ovulation trackers. And so then they put what their recommendation is. So that's other options for your website. Of course, you can always do a side-by-side comparison. So this one is an example of Mira next to Clearblue. But some people will do like the benefits of Mira versus serum blood draws or, anything like that. So if some of those tools are ones that you think would be very beneficial to your patient, we are happy to help create some of these resources as well if it's something that you think would be very useful in your practice. So we welcome that feedback. If there's a resource that you think would be very helpful, please let us know. But every obviously company is different. So another example here is, a website or a blog post explaining how to use it within their protocol. And then, of course, if you do a podcast with one of us, so let's say you invite me onto your podcast, such as Dr. Beth here, then you can put your discount code listed afterwards. So we give you a public discount code if you do like social media posts, webinars, podcasts, things like that. There is a public discount code that we're happy to share with you. And then probably one of the best tools that we can provide you is this patient handout. And I know Christina uses it in her practice where if you're introducing Mira to a patient and you want them to have everything in their hands after the visit, this patient handout we will create for you. We'll co-brand it. We put your discount code listed right on it. If you are an affiliate member, we'll put your affiliate link and affiliate QR code. And we'll even put the QR code for them to scan to share their data with you too. So it's a very, we're trying to make a comprehensive document for you so you don't have to create it yourself, where you can introduce Mira to a patient and everything's all in one place. So any comments on that one, Christine? I know you use it.
Yeah, I use it. I use a HIPAA compliant messaging platform called Spruce with my patients. So after every time I meet with a patient, an initial patient, and we're usually always talking about some sort of hormonal concern, this is something that I attach to their message. So they're just getting it electronically. They usually order it the same day. It's just very easy.
Wonderful. Okay. And then the last thing that we want to show you, a new feature that we've just added to our our provider website, is under the support center. You'll see this promotional support. And so we have gotten feedback from providers is you're busy taking care of patients and you don't want to have to create content. And we get that. And so we have created some templates for you. So we will put, the pictures on it, the words on it, and then you can just enter your discount code. So we're starting to create these resources for you to help you to make it easier for you as a clinician. Again, you're caring for the patient. So the patient handout is one of our resources. The next thing is these social media posts.
Rose, could I just say something on this? Because I don't know that you're going to add this, but as a practitioner, Mira are incredible at affiliate support. I've worked with a number of different products and companies, and the level of support blows my mind. They're very quick to respond. You're so open to any ideas and developing it, and you turn things around really quickly. It's faultless. Honestly, I think you should blow your own trumpet really about that, because as a practitioner, that is so invaluable when you don't have to chase the providers and having to find things and hitting brick walls. You will literally go that extra mile to try and find any solution to anything that is raised. And I think that's incredible and really important as a practitioner to know that level of support is there. I think you're wonderful with it.
Yes, thank you for all those kind words. We do really want to support you. That's my full role, is supporting clinicians and using this in a practice. And I'm very motivated to help women. And we know this is a very important work. So any way that we can support you, that is our goal. So I'm glad that that has come across. So sometimes clinicians want to know, like, when do you recommend Mira though? So I've really seen this be done many ways. I've seen Mira be recommended before they have even met with you. So that could be a patient enters a waiting list. I know many, successful practices, there's a gap in between when a patient says, yes, I want to see you, but then they actually see you. And so that gap time, whether it be a week or 3 weeks, that can be very helpful for the patient to already be going on the website, buying the Mira device, and then starting to test. So when they come to see you, they already have some data to review. I know, Christina, you and I, when we did that previous webinar, you had a patient who, like her first cycle, you were already able to see some pretty, I'll say, abnormal data and already start making changes. So from a clinician standpoint, maybe this is just me, but we're kind of selfish and we want all the data, all the data we can get. And so if there is a way that you incorporate into your practice, even before they even see you, I can see a lot of value there. But I don't want to speak for you, Christine, if you have any comments on that.
Yeah, no, I have started doing that. I have a wait of about 3 to 4 months before I can see a new patient. And so I have them fill out a pretty robust intake form prior to their visit that I have them fill out at the time that they're signing up with my practice. And so it gives me a chance to like tease out people that I'm like, oh, I need to capture some of their information before they come in, just so that when I see them, I'm not like, okay, now we need to track for a couple of weeks. And so I will have certain people do that even before I see them, so that when I meet with them at their first consultation visit, we can really hit the ground running. We already have information going on. If there's additional lab work I have that I want to get done, we can get blood drawn or whatever done at that visit. And so it saves us a lot of time, but also it's just, and I think this has been mentioned, but it's just a very affirming and empowering piece of information for women. And so when they're coming in for their first visit, not only are they getting some some real answers, now they're like coming away with an actual treatment plan. And so I do a combination of everything on this slide. And a lot of times I tell people too, if we capture some data, sometimes we know right away within a week or two what's going on. Like we think it's going to be this long drawn out process, but then we see some patterns, track their symptoms, things are making sense. And I always tell them like, okay, now you can put that away unless you want to keep tracking, but now you can put that away. And if something new changes or something new develops, or we're all aging, so we age a little more and things shift and change, then you just go back to tracking. You have this at home and you're comfortable with it. So I do a combination of all of this, but I do love capturing some information before I meet with them.
Mm-hmm. And I think from the patient side, instead of feeling like it's just wasted time, they're waiting 3 months to see you, they feel empowered, like I'm doing something, getting ready to see you. So then they can come, educated to their first visit. So I agree with you. I think the same thing of, I never promise that they'll be able to, have a week's worth of data and it's enough to say something, but sometimes it is. I never promise it. I never promise it. But, the more data, the better, usually from a clinician side. So being able to get that before the visit. So, but you said something that I want to touch on, because sometimes people will ask, if I have them start testing, do they have to keep testing? Well, of course not. They can pause testing. If they're stable with their treatment, they can pause testing and they can pick it back up. So that might be a patient who's doing well on what you've recommended, but all of a sudden something changes and you're like, well, let's start testing again and let's see, has something completely shifted? So I'm glad you touched on that. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to add something about the longitudinal data that are possible with the Mira, because I think that's really exciting. So we don't yet attract a very large concentration of people coming, women coming to us in advance of starting to think about getting pregnant and wanting to be pregnant. We call those the in the future mommies or the future mommies. But I really, I have my first non-academic book will be published in the summer of 2026, and it will start with the trimester. But really, there's a book before that for them that's about the cycle science and about learning your cycle early for the sake of preventing pregnancy while you're not ready, without having to mask what your body would do naturally and with synthetic hormones. Not that I am in any way against hormonal birth control, because I'm very much in favor of freedom and women getting to choose what's best for themselves. But we do know that there are a lot of side effects of hormonal birth control, and that one of them is simply that you don't get to see what your body would be doing naturally, and especially at some critical developmental stages in the reproductive life. So my hope is that as we spread the word, that we really want girls and women, as soon as they start menstruating, to start understanding their cycles, so that they also can see the trajectory, to see when big shifts are starting to take place. Because what we're seeing epidemiologically is that people are having fertility challenges much more early. They're becoming more common as a whole, but they're becoming even more common among younger ages than among quote unquote older ages. So our oldest mama today is 48 and a half years old, and we'll have our first 51-year-old woman giving birth in 2025. And so we tend to be working with much older women. But if we can see over time and say, oh, there was a big change here, and it's unexpected because you're only in your early 30s, but that might mean that we have to intervene now, or that you may want to push up your timeline for having children if you want to have 2, 3 plus children. I think that that's so critical. And then also, as you're getting into perimenopause and toward that menopausal transition. So I'm very excited to be able to see that kind of information in future cohorts. And of course, when my daughter, as soon as she starts menstruating, she's going to be doing the Mira from the very beginning, because I want her to have that kind of understanding and insight about her own body. What a gift to be able to have that.
Well, and I think you touched on something that the more data we have on women's hormones, the better care that we're going to be able to provide them. And when we have now data that we've been collecting for years, yes. The research is already starting to happen, and it's super exciting that we get to be a part of some of them. So as we mentioned, Adele's pilot study, there's also researchers who are looking at hormone levels related to pain within the cycle, and all the aspects within women's hormones is just now being, a big light has just been shined on it of, we can track this now. Mm-hmm. And so it's, going to bring more research and more good things to women's health. So again, super exciting that we get to be a part of that. I'm going to throw out another poll question, just because of course, sometimes there are barriers to getting started. And so what are some main concerns that you might have when you're trying to get a patient started with Mira? So is it the effort that it takes the patient, the cost, lack of understanding, or other? So again, we'd love to know kind of your feedback here while we continue on the discussion. So the next we'd like to talk about is like how you share this. So this is just an example of a process. So a provider determines that a patient would benefit from Mira. Patient then gets given the patient handout. So the provider hands them that PDF, that one pager. Patients purchases it from the website. They start testing. They add themselves into your dashboard, and then you do a follow-up session. You review that data. But what's really cool about the ongoing ability of this data is many things happen potentially between visits. So you see a patient, you're scheduled to see them in the month, but then something changes. And so it's really empowering for the patient to be able to have that amount of data in between their visits. And it may actually prompt something. Maybe a visit needs to be rescheduled to be sooner, or you have to change based on how they're responding. So we see those changes based on interventions or current situations. So there's been several situations, for example, that we've captured where the patient started testing right at the right time. Something happened in their life and their hormones changed, and we are actually able to capture it. So the ability to have this remote ongoing monitoring of data instead of a snapshot in time of whether you're doing, a serum test or a more invasive or a bigger test like Dutch Complete, something like that. They have their purposes. And I think, Christina, you've touched on that before. So maybe you want to touch on for a second, like pros and cons to Mira data versus other types of hormone data that you can get on a patient.
Yeah. So this came up today when I was doing a consult today. Somebody, she's 40 years old, has had lots of testing done over the years since she turned 36. And the problem is that, first of all, the lab ranges for blood work for hormones. And when I talk about hormones, I mean progesterone, estradiol, and testosterone. The lab ranges are so wide that there's a lot of people that fall in the normal range, but they're not having a normal experience because it's not a one snapshot in time. And I usually tell people that when you go to the phlebotomist to draw labs, that's just saying what your estrogen, what your LH, your FSH, your progesterone is that one moment. That could have been very different an hour before and an hour after. And for perimenopausal women, it is very likely that their hormones are fluctuating hour to hour. I mean, we know that FSH in perimenopause literally can fluctuate hour to hour. So that's too much to capture in one lab visit, right? And so that's the beauty of doing this continuous monitoring. And I think it was Adele that mentioned continuous glucose monitoring, the same thing, the ability to track over time. Because what I tell people is that it's trends that matter when we're talking about hormones or anything that's fluctuating and cycling. So, your lab test a year ago or 2 years ago, even that I can't trend because it kind of doesn't mean anything unless it's really, really low or really, really high. And so then it just adds to the experience all my labs are normal, but I feel horrible or I feel terrible or I feel like something else is going on. So yeah, I mean, I still will order blood tests and lab tests because I'm a concierge medicine clinic, but I'm a primary care provider for women. And so I'll order blood work labs, but a lot of times I lean away from testing hormones unless it's a very specific scenario or situation, because this is the way that I prefer to monitor hormone levels.
Thank you for sharing that. So to summarize some of the benefits of, using Mira, introducing it early is, of course, the patient has, more, and of course, I saw some people's comments about the cost, but it is really more affordable than some other options. So that ongoing ability to track, and I'm happy to meet with you if cost really is prohibitive for your patient. There are lots of strategies we can do. Of course, we give out that patient discount code. We can do a altered testing pattern. Lots of ways that we can reduce the cost and still get the data that you want. But for patients, they're not having to go to the lab multiple times. They have this continuation of data over potentially months or years. And from the provider side, you can see data before they even see you. You can potentially identify something right away. So, I have one clinician in mind they got their patient testing mid-luteal phase. So they were almost, within a week of their period, and they were already able to see some hormone dysfunction. And then they tested one more cycle, it repeated the next luteal phase. So now they have essentially 2 cycles worth of data, even though they were only able to start testing at the very end of that first cycle. So immediate testing can be very helpful as well. So just some other quick strategies. If you are interested in more information, you want to maybe advertise this to your team. I conduct group educational sessions. So maybe you have a group of clinicians at your practice and you want all of them to learn at the same time. And we have done this for many practices and they really enjoy it. It's usually a 45-minute or an hour-long session that I conduct, teaching from the very basics of what hormone tracking with Mira is like up to case studies. I'm happy to do that. Many providers have also given us feedback that they want resources to share with the patient because the patients don't always, understand hormone tracking. And so these are some resources that you're welcome to share with the patient. So there's a public blog about the importance of hormone tracking. We put on patient webinars, and then we also have free ebooks that, again, these are resources that you're welcome to share with your patients if you've been looking for something. Again, we don't want you to have to create all these things yourself. So these are some resources for you. So now we're going to move into getting started as a partner, how we can improve patient outcomes. So, and I do see someone in the chat saying, can we share these things in links instead of QR codes? We are sending you this PDF. We're actually going to put it in the chat at the end. And so all of these links are active links and the QR codes, whichever one is better for you, you'll be able to see. So how do we improve patient outcomes? So we want you to understand this data. So as a clinician, I'm actually going to switch over from this presentation to showing you our provider website. So this provider website is available to you all the time. We are always updating it to be whatever, again, more resources, more things, whatever we can share with you. So this is our real live provider website. I'm just going to give you a quick tour of it. So you'll notice that the first tab is about becoming a partner. So if you have not become a partner yet and you want to, and you want more data than what we just shared here, please go to this tab. Additionally, we have our knowledge center. So we list out 4 of the most commonly used like clinical situations. So are you helping someone in their fertility, trying to conceive or trying to avoid? Are you helping women in perimenopause, hormone imbalances, or are you using this as a fertility awareness method? So we'd encourage you to go to these pages. They're each organized the same way. They have within them a protocol. So we list out what the Mira data would be helpful for. We list out our limitations, a testing pattern, and also case studies. We also then on this website have case reports. So these are providers who have used Mira in their practice. They've written up their patient situation, the before data, during treatment, and after. So you're welcome to look through these. And then we also have previously recorded webinars. So maybe you wanted to learn more about PCOS and PMDD, for example. And finally, we have chart examples. So if you wanted to see maybe what does an amenorrhea chart look like, you can go ahead and click on these and see some chart examples. Additionally, on the website, we have our support center. So this is where we have provider-focused frequently asked questions. And then we have our, someone was asking about an interpretation guide. Yes, we do give you an interpretation guide. We have a video interpretation and also the PDF. So if you are wanting to learn how to interpret the Mira data, maybe this is something that you haven't started yet, we would highly encourage you to look through this document. It's quite robust. It has the overall hormone patterns. We go through then each one at a time: LH, estrogen, progesterone, FSH, abnormal findings, and troubleshooting. So again, quite robust. We'd be happy to, if you watch this and you still have questions, that's where we also have our contact support center. So if you click this button, you can say you want help with educational support. So you can go ahead and email me directly, or you can click this button and schedule a session with me. If you have questions about any of our partnership, our provider dashboard, where you view your patient's data, or how to become an affiliate member, how to get your discount code, how to get a patient handout, anything like that, please email either our partnership email, or you can book a session here with our team. So again, we want to support you on this journey in any way that we can. And the first place we'd always encourage you to go is to this provider website. Okay, I'm going to switch back to our presentation here. Any comments from the panelists about maybe learning how to understand the Mira data? How do you feel comfortable understanding hormone levels and Mira data and all of that?
That's quite a tricky question, because I think
Yeah.
I kind of came, it's hard because that was like my job. I think probably for all of us, it's like our job, and probably so many of the practitioners here is we're just familiar with this data. I think the thing for me was to have it in such a visual way. to see it, because we see, you know, we in our training, you know, everyone's seen those images of the estrogen and the progesterone kind of doing the dance. And really up until this, yes, we've had the Dutch, and this is a much more affordable option, although the Dutch, you know, has different things that can be supportive for different areas. But to actually have this, and not just figures like you've spoken about with the blood tests and how really unhelpful they are. And I actually think they're one of the most damaging tools for women's messaging around their health. So for me, it was about having this almost theoretical knowledge and seeing it happening in a woman's body in a real life way, seeing those ratios of estrogen to progesterone, really seeing this pattern. That for me was just a game changer, I think. So probably not able to answer your question about how did I learn it, because I kind of came with it, which is why this side of came in to sort of support my practice. So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but just what comes up for me.
Yeah, I would piggyback off that as well. I mean, I became a certified menopause practitioner in 2020 and have just done a lot of trainings around like hormone just stuff since then. And with all of that, I also started a certification for the Marquette method. So I learned a lot about the kind of science behind home hormone tracking. And that method is based off of qualitative measurements, not quantitative. But I think just using it and learning through my patients, as well as like using it myself and understanding myself and what hormones look like when I do it myself, just to have also add that kind of patient experience or to kind of relate to the patient experience. But yeah, it's just like through a lot of practice and understanding patterns and pattern recognition and yeah.
Great. Well, and I think we all wish that there was just like a golden bullet that we could say, you just go here, you take this course and you'll learn it all. But we know that it's not that simple, especially in women's health. So I'm glad to hear from both of you that it's kind of like an ever evolving, ongoing learning. How can we better support women? But again, if we come across something that we find to be very helpful, we are more than happy to share it. So again, maybe even if you want to put in the chat, like something that's been very helpful for you, again, we would be happy to share that to other clinicians. Many clinicians want to learn from clinicians who have gone through this already. So that's one of the reasons why we brought these lovely three panelists on, is because you have, gone through this yourself and are using it in your practice. So I want to make sure there's time at the end for questions, but we just have a couple of things that we want to share. So if you have not seen yet, we did come out with a new menopause mode in the app. So this is meant for women over 35 who are wanting to be tracking their FSH levels. So this would be tracking all 4 hormones. And they're also wanting to be tracking some of the symptoms. So within the app, we've made it more user-friendly that now they can track things like hot flashes and night sweats and symptoms that are more specific to perimenopause. And we will give a menopause staging. So we have 4 categories that we can help women to understand kind of where they are. But then we turn it back over to you as the clinicians as, now, how are you going to help these women day to day? So we're very upfront that we are not trying to take the place of you as a clinician. This is data that they can collect at home. They can be tracking these symptoms, and they can come to see you for additional help with those symptoms now that they've been tracking. So with our last couple minutes here, is there any final things from the 3 of you that I failed to ask, or that you'd really like to talk about? While you share, I'm going to put another poll in the chat for all of our attendees today of what would be the most helpful for you if you're trying to learn. So.
One thing that I'd like to add is just how, I mean, we've all heard about and talk about how the menstrual cycle is a vital sign. But one thing that's really interesting about the menstrual cycle is that it's quite responsive in real time. So one of the things that I love is that people, as they're using the Mira to track their hormones and the ratios among them and the dance among them, can really see visually how the actions that they're taking, both the internal, more psychological, emotional actions and hygiene and habits that they're integrating from the trimester protocol, are having an effect in their hormones that they can see, but also what we call our nutritional gifts and digestive practices and our oral care practices and all the pieces that go into making the fertility system. And they can also see when they've had an event that's really stressful, that it can show up there. They can see how maybe the indulgences of the holidays affect the next cycle. And I think that that's really powerful for people to see, that the efforts that they're taking or they're making are making a difference, and they can see that concretely in real time, but also to have that feedback loop that, oh, when I do this, it shows up in my body and it's reflected in my cycle and it's not serving me. So there are sometimes people who have a really hard time abstaining from alcohol, which of course is a fundamental thing that we want them to do in the trimester protocol for egg quality and hormonal balance and the gut brain axis and the orchestration within the brain of initiating the hormones. And it can be really hard for them if it's a part of their work life, a part of their social life. But once they start to see how that maps on to changes in their cycle, it can really reinforce, like, this has been a really good choice for me, as opposed to, here's what the science says, here's what Dr. C would like to see you do. So I think that that's very powerful also. And that's something that you can't get from serum tests, because you can't do them that frequently, or it's not likely that you can financially and also just logistically, or even the Dutch test, because it's hard to do over and over again. So I think that that's also a really powerful part of having this tool at your fingertips.
Yes, thank you for sharing. Any other comments from Adele or Christina?
No, nothing else I'd like to add. I think we've covered it all.
Great. So again, there are lots of questions in the chat that I know my team has been trying to answer as we go. Let me just see. Before anyone logs off, I'm going to go ahead and share this presentation. So if you want to go back through and get that link or the chat or anything like that, please go ahead and get that handout. And then let me just see here. We'll go through the last slide, and then I'll make sure that we leave a couple of minutes to answer some of the questions in the chat. So if you attended this webinar and you have not met with our team yet, you haven't chosen partnership, you really are just starting out and you don't understand the Mira data yet, please book a call with us. I would be happy to meet with you, explain really, from the beginning, the importance of hormone tracking, how it can help you, how it fits into your practice. These sessions are really enjoyed by providers. It's in a group setting with providers who are asking questions. We talk about case studies. So again, if you have not started with us, please go ahead and scan this QR code. We will send you a Mira sample as well and get you started in with us. So let me just see if I can scroll now through some of the questions. And let me see if there's some that would be specific to our panelists here who could help answer. I see questions about the menopause mode. Can they be in the menopause mode and another section? So maybe they're trying to avoid a pregnancy and perimenopause or menopause. Yes, they can be in both at the same time. The menopause mode, again, it's a questionnaire that the patient fills out that can show them how to be if they qualify for that mode. So they have to be older than age of 35 and answer the questionnaire to do the menopause mode. Let's see here. Someone wants to know what kit you would recommend for someone who has dysmenorrhea or other menstrual irregularities. So the analyzer itself is one analyzer and has the ability to track up to the 4 hormones. So you could get started with tracking the estrogen, LH, and progesterone, and you could always add in the FSH if you wanted it or needed it. So hopefully that answered your question, Jonathan. Let me scroll back through here. And thank you for those who have been answering some of the questions for me as we go. It looks like a lot of people want a master class on hormone. So maybe I need to hire Christina, Dell, and Dr. Cleopatra to make a course for us so that we can run a master's level class. Let's see here. So maybe I'll put this question over, try to put you on the spot, Christina, but the question about perimenopause, it says, for clinicians that typically do blood work, it says, how do you use Mira with your perimenopausal client? I think we mostly answered that, but any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, not really. Just if they're coming to me and they've had recent blood work within the past 6 months, or I'm getting blood work, I'm not checking hormone levels. I mean, I tell people that you don't diagnose perimenopause as a clinical, it's not even a pathologic state. It's just a state in the natural reproductive lifespan if somebody has the privilege to live long enough, right? And so it's clinically diagnosed, if you will, if you can use that word, diagnosed. And so there's not a set of labs that tell you if somebody's perimenopausal. It's really what her experience is and what her symptom tracking is. And so Mira is a tool to kind of help understand and also be an affirming piece to say, okay, this is what your hormones are doing. And I typically draw them a picture of what hormones do over the course of their lifespan. I draw that first on paper and I say, you're probably here just based on age. And then we collect Mira and then we're like, okay, see, you're kind of doing this picture that I drew for you. And so even prior to me using Mira, when I was seeing perimenopausal and menopausal patients, I wasn't obtaining estrogen and FSH per se to diagnose or understand or recognize perimenopause. The only time I used FSH and estradiol was to understand if somebody was actually postmenopausal, had already gone through the menopause transition. Maybe they had a hysterectomy, maybe they have an IUD, or they had an ablation, and we're trying to understand if they've actually kind of crossed over that threshold. Like, that's the only time I would normally use it. So I'm doing other things in blood work, like looking at testosterone, cortisol, although sometimes I usually use saliva for cortisol testing, and then a full thyroid panel, as well as metabolic panel, looking at insulin, blood glucose. So I do a very thorough lab evaluation to make sure that there's not any other organic causes that can give rise to their symptoms, because the symptoms of perimenopause can be vague and can be a lot of things. So, not trying to have blinders on, we'll look at all of that in blood work, and then use Mira alongside to kind of capture that hormonal trend piece.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. There was some other questions about like ranges and interpreting the data. So again, if you need to log off, I totally understand. But for those who wanted to see this information, I'm just going to go back to that provider website again quickly and go to the interpretation guide. So when you're looking at our interpretation guide, each section has the first slide of that guide has an analysis that we've done on a bulk of users. So let me I'll, for the sake of time today, just go through one section of estrogen. So to start with estrogen, what we've done is we've compiled 1,624 self-reported conception cycles. This is a client using Mira that marked that they conceived on this given cycle. And so we've created a mean and median line. And then the bulk of users is the dark gray, and then we fade out into the outliers. And so with this data in mind, you can now use this checklist of 3 things to ask yourself, is the estrogen following the normal coordination? So the first question would be, does estrogen rise towards the LH surge? So of course, this would be normal. This would be abnormal. The second part is estrogen should decline and then have a second rise. So again, normal, rise, fall, second rise. This one is missing its second rise. We're concerned about the formation of the corpus luteum. And we can always check then with progesterone. Did progesterone go up? If it's inconclusive, kind of like this value here, then we're concerned about a very suboptimal ovulation attempt or a partial rupture or a luteinized unruptured follicle, something like that. And then finally, estrogen should have a time when it's the most dominant. So it should be the highest when it's approaching ovulation. whereas this example shows that estrogen, instead of rising towards ovulation, you can see it's rising, continues to rise, and stays elevated throughout the luteal phase. So again, this is some of the depth that the interpretation guide gives you. So I'd encourage you as a clinician to go to this website to view our interpretation guide. And again, if you want to hear it explained, we do have a video guide as well. So I think that's probably all that we have time for today. Again, if we did not get to your chat question, we will go ahead and answer those after this session and get them emailed out to you. Anyone who registered for this event will get sent, again, the PDF slides, this recording, and then the answers to the questions. So be looking in your email for that. And again, so glad that all of our panelists could be here. Thank you for sharing your expertise, your passion for women's health, and sharing how this can improve our patient outcomes. Okay. Thank you. See lots of thank yous coming in the chat too. So thank you from all the audience.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.